Welcome to the Emotional Eating Unwrapped podcast. I'm your host, Alana Kessler, an emotional eating and weight loss coach for women looking to fall in love with eating, create healthy attachments with food, and lose weight sustainably. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Emotional Eating Unwrapped. I'm your host, Alana Kessler, and today I want to talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough when it comes to healing your relationship with food, because we often focus so much on the food itself. But today I want to talk about grief, because for so many of us, emotional eating has been more than just a habit. It's been a source of comfort. It's been a coping mechanism, even a sense of safety and security. And when you start to heal emotional eating, when you make the conscious decision to let go of emotional overeating, when that awareness starts to come in, when the phases of change go from pre-contemplation to contemplation to preparation, right? And you're like, I want to change, and you make this decision, it can feel like you're losing something. It can feel like you're losing something familiar, and that can be really, really hard. That can be really, really hard emotionally. And so if you've ever thought to yourself, why does healing feel so uncomfortable, right? It's like when we see memes, when we see on social media these images of healing, it's like people in bright lights, people with gold halos over their head. So if you've ever thought to yourself, when you're in the midst of healing, why does this feel so uncomfortable? Why do I sometimes even miss the way that things used to be, even if I know that they weren't serving me? This is the episode for you, because healing isn't just about changing behaviors. It's about letting go, and not like a cliche letting go. It's about disentangling and shedding. It's about shedding. And sometimes shedding feels like a loss. So today we're going to talk about why emotional eating and emotional overeating in particular can feel like a safety net, why it's completely normal to grieve the loss of that, even to the point where you might second guess or question your decision to heal altogether. And we're going to talk about how to start building new coping mechanisms that actually support you, not just in the moment, which emotional overeating and binging is. It's a coping mechanism that supports you in the moment in a very primitive way. So we're going to talk about how we can learn how to start building new coping mechanisms that actually support you in the long run, which is what we all really want, and which is what really is the foundation for authentic confidence, freedom, and happiness. So let's start by saying, and just reminding ourselves, reminding you, reminding me as I say this, that emotional eating isn't just about the food. It's about what food and eating, the act of eating, represents. For so many of us, food has been a form of self-soothing. It's been the thing we turn to when we're stressed, when we're sad, when we're overwhelmed, even just bored, even just in those moments where nothing is bad, but nothing is happening. So we just eat, right? To feel like we're doing something, right? It's the late night ice cream after a long, draining day. It's the snacks we eat mindlessly while we're curled up on the couch trying to quiet our racing thoughts. It's the meals that feel like a warm hug when everything feels cold, even celebratory eating. When we're in a time of celebration, but maybe, we're not necessarily super hungry, but we eat anyway because it reminds us of another time that's nostalgic. And beyond the food itself, there's a ritual. There's the act of preparing something comforting. That moment of relief, exhale, kind of just like a settling that happens when you take that first bite. and the familiarity of turning to something predictable when, life often can feel uncertain, unpredictable, really just edgy, and it's difficult to live in that. So when we start working on healing and we begin to unlearn our emotional overeating, it's not just about breaking the habit, it's about letting go and releasing something that's almost felt like a friend, a confidant. And that's where the grief can come in, because this engagement that we have with food and eating, it's a relationship. It's a relationship. And there's connection and love and emotional attachment there. And whenever we need to let go of something that we're emotionally attached to, there's going to be grief. And so when you start making changes, you might feel worse before you start to feel better. And that's something that I want to normalize for you. That's something that I want you to be prepared for. And most people will not prepare you for that, which is why it's not often talked about, and it's what usually ends up sabotaging people in the long run. Because suddenly, even if, suddenly when you decide to heal, and if you are in a program or something that doesn't address this emotional attachment issue, what happens is it feels very jarring. And suddenly the thing that you've used to numb stress or soften the edges of a hard day isn't there in the same way anymore. Right? Sometimes you can, you can sugarcoat over it with a new plan or like a new program that gives you new information and, things you can substitute for it, right? Like, oh, here's a new macro plan I have to follow. Like your brain can get distracted and can transfer that energy to a new program, but only for a short time, right? Only for a short time, because before long, you end up missing your old friend. And so that's why we immediately want to talk about this. I want you to start recognizing this insight, this awareness, this emotional intelligence as one of the most important things that you have to work on if you really want to heal emotional overeating and binging. Because when this behavior can't be there in the same way anymore without that immediate comfort, you're going to notice that emotions start to rise to the surface. Emotions that maybe you haven't had to fully feel before. And that could be really, really overwhelming. It can feel unfamiliar, and it can make you miss emotional overeating and binging, even when you know that it won't serve you in the long run. And the grief can also show up as nostalgia, the longing for the safety and predictability of old patterns, even if they weren't healthy. Because the truth is, and I think we know this when it comes to romantic relationships, we know this when it comes to any dynamic that's interpersonal. Just because something wasn't good for you doesn't mean it didn't feel comforting. So if you're in this place and you're listening to this today and you are in the journey of healing from emotional overeating, from binging, and you feel like it's very up and down, and you're struggling with discomfort of change, right? It's like not linear. You have a couple great days where you feel really aligned with yourself, and then all of a sudden you don't. Like this is normal. I want you to hear me say this. I want you to hear me really when I say you're not doing anything wrong. You're just moving through the part that no one warns you about. And often most people just give you more stuff to distract you from it. Right? You are in the part now where you are learning to sit with yourself in a new way. And this is a really, really, really important part. This is a part that the women in my mentorship, we spend 30 days in this, at least. We spend so much time. We spend so much time in it. It's always there, but we really, really support each other and focus on this part of it. I remember what it felt like to be stuck in the cycle of emotional eating. I tried every diet out there, counting, tracking, restricting, but nothing ever worked. Food controlled my life, my thoughts, and I constantly felt guilty after eating. But once I learned how to heal the emotional triggers behind my eating and trust my body, everything changed. I stopped obsessing over food, the weight started coming off naturally, and I found real freedom in how I ate and lived. So, I created the Sober Eating year-long mentorship to help other women experience the same transformation. So you can stop battling with food, you can lose weight without deprivation, and you can feel confident in your body again. In this mentorship, you'll have access to my proven nervous system rewiring method. You'll have access to live coaching with me, weekly accountability, and a community of women who truly understand your journey. You'll also have free access to my signature programs, the Emotional Eating Solution and Decoding Permanent Weight Loss, valued at $2,000. Click the link in the show notes to explore the mentorship today. You don't have to do this alone. I'll be right there with you every step of the way. And something that really can help in this, in this phase is honoring the role that emotional overeating and binging played in your life, right? Instead of shaming yourself for the behaviors, honor the role that it played in your life, because emotional overeating isn't a failure. It's not a weakness. It's a coping mechanism. It's the best way that you knew how to comfort yourself when you didn't have other tools. And that matters. Context always matters. So instead of saying to yourself, if you have a moment where you make a decision that you feel like wasn't the most self-honoring, instead of saying to yourself, I can't believe that I used food like that, I can't believe I gave in. Instead, try saying, I see why I needed that. Like I see what was going on emotionally, why I did that. And I see why I turned to food for comfort. And now I can begin to deconstruct that context and learn new ways and come up with new ways that I can take care of myself. Right? One of the ways that you can start replacing old patterns is by creating a list of alternative ways to self-soothe, something that is easily accessible for yourself, not in a restrictive, I can't eat this, oh my God, so I have to do something else way, but in a how can I meet my needs in a deeper kind of way. And having a list is really nice, right? Like having a list of those things is really nice. And sometimes you'll want to turn to them and use it, and sometimes you won't. Sometimes you'll just want to do nothing. And, learning how to be with the nothingness is really valuable. It's really valuable too. And when you start to implement these little micro changes in behavior, it affects the way your nervous system responds. And they seem small, but over time, these are the micro actions that create real change. That emotional feeling to want to emotionally overeat and binge, even to this day, I'm like, 15 years, healed from this behavior. But I still get that urge, right? Like that voice of like, oh, I get that, that everyone has that voice. Like we all know what that feels like for us, where it's like, just have more, like, go into your secret space and do it, like that voice, I still hear her, like she'll come. So healing doesn't mean never having the urge. It just means learning how to recognize what's happening, slow down enough and choose a new path, even if it feels uncomfortable at first, even if it feels uncomfortable for a little while in that moment. And that is the most challenging part. That's why emotional support in this time is so key. Emotional support in the form of, a guidance, in the form of other people going along with you in the same journey. Because this transition period, that space between letting go of old habits and fully stepping into new ones, that gray area, that's what everybody wants to avoid. That's why everyone, buys into all of these quick fix things, because we just don't want to be in the gray area that feels uncertain, that feels like I don't have a resolution for my feelings immediately. I don't have a place to put my energy. I can't put it with food, and I can't put it with this new program that told me in 30 days I'll be great. It's like, so I feel very untethered. But this is where real growth happens. When you're willing to be in this untethered space, because what you really need is what you really need isn't some sort of external, guidance, or, some external program, some external rule, some external diet, some external meal plan that you just follow. That's not what you need. You need support while you allow yourself to stay in this untethered place and be in this transition. Because once you navigate the transition, the healing is inevitable. The success, the long-term success is inevitable. So here are some ways that you can navigate this transition. You want to create small grounding rituals for yourself. And you need to not just write them in a notebook, you need to do them. Right? And don't make them crazy. Don't make them like really complicated. Right? It can be just like a playlist. It can be something super easy. Right? A playlist that you listen to. It can be something that you can just, put your energy into and create consistency for yourself. Because consistency and predictability is what calms your nervous system. And when that comes from you and what you enjoy doing, and your body and mind and spirit and nervous system know that this is what you like, that's how you start to build that trust. You want to start practicing sitting with discomfort. And this can be really challenging because we are in a society where we just want to move away from discomfort as quick as possible. But I really like to embrace discomfort and ask myself, okay, this is an uncomfortable feeling, and that's okay because I am not this feeling. So what am I actually feeling? And separate my own reality from what I'm feeling in this moment, because those are two separate things. So once I can, disassociate or disentangle my reality from what I'm feeling, I'm able to deal with it better. And I'm able to deal with discomfort better and still go about my life and make self-honoring decisions while feeling uncomfortable or stressed or anxious or edgy or bored or lonely or whatever the feeling is, right? Or overwhelmed. And then the last thing, there's more, but the last thing I'm going to share here is you just want to be patient with yourself too. Right? Like there are moments where you're going to slip back into old patterns, for sure. Right? In this journey, in this path of healing in this way, that's authentic, that's deep, that's true, that takes into account your entire self, not just, losing weight, which you will, but not just getting to a physical result, but really creating a beingness within yourself that is light, joyful, free. You have to be patient with yourself, and it's not going to be linear. There are moments where you'll slip back. That doesn't mean you failed. It just means that you're human, because the goal isn't perfection. It's progress. Consistency is king. Consistency, reflection, make new choices. That's it. That's it. And above all, you want to just give yourself the time. You want to give yourself the time. And you want to give yourself the time to untether from the person that you were with these, with these coping behaviors that weren't serving you. You want to give yourself time to step into the person that you're becoming. Because this work that we're doing isn't just about food. It's about learning how to be with yourself in a new way that feels safe, that feels compassionate, right? That feels loving. And so if you're in the middle of this transition, if you're feeling that grief, because you might not even realize that that's what you're feeling. So I want to name this for you, that if there's this weird feeling that you feel going on in yourself and you're not sure what it is, it might be grief. And so if you're feeling this grief of letting go, I want you to know this is a part of it. You are not broken. It's not wrong. It's not like the wrong thing. You're just becoming. You're becoming your higher version of yourself. You are becoming the healed version of yourself. And sometimes that is a painful process. And we want to honor the whole process. All right. So as always, I am wishing you so much grace, so much self-compassion on this journey that you are on. You are doing amazing work. You are growing, and you are worthy of a life that feels peaceful, not just with eating and food, but within yourself. Okay. So thank you so much for listening, as always. And if you enjoy the podcast, please give us a like. Please subscribe on YouTube. Give us a like on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to your podcast. And until next time, I'm Alana, and thank you for listening to Emotional Eating Unwrapped.